You are not weak. You are not incapable. You are not failing. You are simply too available. And that is exactly why people keep taking from you. The more you give, the more they expect. The more you endure in silence, the more invisible your limits become. You tell yourself it's strength. You tell yourself you're being patient. But one day, you realize something uncomfortable. People don't respect you. They're just accustomed to using you. Human nature is simple but brutal. People push where resistance is soft. They test the quiet. They extract from those who never make themselves costly to lose. This is not about becoming cruel. This is about ending the cycle where kindness becomes permission. There is a moment when exploitation stops. A moment when your presence carries weight. A moment when people hesitate before crossing you. This video is about that moment. The moment you stop being safe to exploit. Say this to yourself and write this affirmation in comments. I choose respect. Number 1. Emotional exhaustion is a leak of power. Being constantly useful quietly destroys authority. When you are always the one fixing things, always the one showing up, always the one carrying weight for others, something important starts leaking out of you. Not because helping is wrong, but because you are doing it without limits, without structure, and without protection. Your effort becomes expected instead of appreciated. People begin to rely on your endurance instead of respecting your presence. When your energy is always available, it becomes predictable. They know you will handle it. They know you will adapt. They know you won't complain. And once people know exactly what they can pull from you, respect begins to disappear. Predictability turns strength into convenience. Think of energy like force. When it spreads everywhere, it loses impact. But when it is directed, controlled, and intentionally released, it becomes powerful enough to shape outcomes. Your emotional energy works the same way. Scattered generosity weakens you. Focused effort strengthens you. Being emotionally available to everyone makes you manageable. When people know they can always reach you, always lean on you, always extract from you, they stop seeing you as valuable and start seeing you as accessible. And accessibility is never treasured. You say I'm fine automatically. Even when you're drained. Even when you're struggling. Even when you're barely holding yourself together. That phrase becomes your armor, but it's fragile. It protects nothing. It signals that you will absorb pressure silently. That you won't push back. That you won't demand better. That you will carry weight without asking for balance. Real burnout doesn't come from work. It comes from unreturned giving. From pouring into people who never pour back. From being strong for everyone while no one notices your fatigue. Each time you give without receiving, an imbalance forms. And that imbalance doesn't just drain your body. It drains your authority. People stop asking what you need because you've trained them that you'll manage alone. They stop reciprocating because the dynamic never required it. Energy without control invites extraction. Not because people are evil, but because you made it easy. When there is no appreciation and no consequence, you become invisible. Useful, but unseen. The moment you begin controlling where your energy goes, everything shifts. When you stop being endlessly available, people notice. When your effort becomes selective, your value rises. Your exhaustion is not weakness. It is information. It is showing you that giving without limits creates takers without gratitude. Number 2, the trap of being the nice one. Excessive kindness often hides a silent strategy. Deep down, there is an unspoken belief guiding your behavior. If you give enough, they will value you. If you sacrifice enough, they will respect you. If you make yourself useful enough, you will finally matter. But here is the uncomfortable truth. You are the only one who agreed to that deal. No one else promised to treat you better because you gave more. They didn't sign that contract. They simply learned that asking you works, so they keep asking. You believe you are building credit. Favor by favor. Yes by yes. Accommodation by accommodation. In your mind, you're keeping score. You assume they will remember. You assume they will appreciate it. You assume they will return it when you need them. They don't. Because to them, this is not generosity. This is just who you are. You are the accommodating one. The reliable one. The one who always adjusts. They don't see your kindness as something costly. They see it as normal. And when kindness becomes normal, it stops being valued. This is why the nice person trap is so destructive. You are operating by one rule set while everyone else is using another. You treat kindness like currency. They treat it like background noise. Respect cannot be earned through sacrifice. It cannot be negotiated by endurance. And it cannot be bought by tolerating disrespect. Respect comes from clarity. From boundaries. From knowing your yes has weight because your no exists. When you are kind to everyone without discrimination, your kindness loses meaning. People must feel that your generosity is a choice, not a guarantee. Otherwise, it becomes expectation. The approval strategy feels noble on the surface. You tell yourself you're just being good. Just being helpful. But underneath, there is often a hunger to be seen, a desire for validation, a hope that all this giving will finally secure your place. And when it doesn't work, resentment grows. You begin to feel used. Taken for granted. Bitter about the very kindness you chose to give. Unspoken agreements create silent resentment and visible weakness. You resent people for breaking rules they never knew existed. And you appear weak because you continue accepting less than you deserve without ever stating your terms. The exit is simple but uncomfortable. Either give without expecting anything in return, or stop giving until balance exists. True kindness asks for nothing. Strategic kindness that pretends to ask for nothing poisons you from the inside. Say this and write this affirmation in the comments. My worth needs no proof. Number 3, no boundaries, no consequences, no respect. People will always test you. Not out of cruelty. Not even consciously. But because testing reveals structure. They ask for more than they should. They step slightly over the line. They see what they can get away with. This is human behavior. We push limits to understand where power sits in a relationship. And when there are no clear limits, the pressure keeps expanding. You finally speak up. You say this doesn't work for you. You say you need something to stop. You say no. They hear you. They may even agree. Then they do it again. And you let it slide. Maybe you're trying to be understanding. Maybe you avoid conflict. Maybe you hope your words alone will be respected without you having to enforce them. But that hope is misplaced. Because a boundary without enforcement is not a boundary. It's a suggestion. When you set limits but never follow through, you teach people that your words are decorative. They learn that pushing past your no eventually leads to yes. And once that lesson is learned, respect disappears. Excessive flexibility is read as permission. When you are too accommodating, too forgiving, too willing to give another chance, people interpret it as weakness. Not because they are malicious, but because there is no cost to crossing you. Respect only exists where loss is possible. People respect you when violating your limits costs them something. That cost might be your time, your access, your help, or your presence. But there must be a consequence. Without it, there is no reason for behavior to change. Boundaries are not debates. They are not explanations. They are not long justifications. They are clear lines. This is acceptable. This is not. And this is what happens if the line is crossed. You don't need people to fear you, but they must respect the outcome of their actions. Without consequences, your words carry no weight. You can repeat yourself endlessly. You can explain your reasoning in new ways. But until one real consequence appears, nothing shifts. The moment you enforce a boundary once, everything recalibrates. People realize you mean what you say. Your limits become real. Your presence becomes solid. And respect arrives naturally. Number 4, the monster in the garden. Goodness without strength is not virtue. Being kind, gentle, and compassionate only has meaning when it is a choice. If you lack the capacity to push back, your kindness is not moral restraint. It is simply your only option. People can feel this immediately. True virtue requires the ability to cause consequence. Not cruelty. Not chaos. But the genuine capacity to make things uncomfortable if necessary. The ability to withdraw. The ability to say no and mean it. The ability to walk away without guilt. This is what most exploited people lack. They have refined kindness so completely that they have removed their own teeth. They are committed to being good, even when goodness makes them defenseless. And harmless people get used. Think about the individuals you respect most. They are probably generous. Probably calm. Probably fair. But there is something else beneath the surface. An edge. A sense that crossing them would not be wise. A quiet strength that signals choice, not weakness. That is integrated power. People sense when you cannot retaliate. When someone knows they can disrespect you without consequence, they instinctively categorize you as safe to exploit. This isn't calculated. It's instinctual. Humans test hierarchies to understand where danger lives. Power comes from contained force. Not wild aggression. Not loud dominance. But controlled capability. Like something calm that does not need to prove itself. You must acknowledge your capacity for force. You could leave. You could refuse. You could remove access. You could create loss. That power exists within you. The difference between you and a cruel person is restraint. You choose not to use your power unnecessarily. But restraint only matters if the power is real. Innocence without strength is prey. Strength without control is chaos. But strength under control earns respect. When people understand that your kindness is voluntary, not compulsory, they treat you differently. Your generosity gains value because it is no longer guaranteed. The moment you stop being harmless, you become protected. Say this and write this affirmation in the comments. I am not harmless. Number 5. Scarcity creates value. Constant availability destroys perceived worth. When you are always present, always reachable, always ready to give, you become invisible in value. Necessary, maybe, but taken for granted. What requires no effort to access rarely inspires appreciation. Value is not created by usefulness alone. It is created by limitation. Think of anything people desire. It is not always the most functional thing that is valued. It is the thing that is rare, costly, or difficult to obtain. The effort required to reach something changes how it is treated. When something is endlessly accessible, the mind dismisses it. When something is limited, attention sharpens. Your time works the same way. When your attention is always on tap, people assume it has little worth. When your help is immediate, it is consumed without gratitude. When your presence costs nothing, it is respected accordingly. Scarcity rewires perception. The moment you stop being constantly available, people notice the absence. When they are no longer guaranteed access to you, their behavior changes. Not because you announced anything, but because the dynamic shifted. This is not manipulation. It is human psychology. People value what requires consideration. They respect what costs them something. When you pull back, curiosity replaces entitlement. When your time becomes selective, your value increases. When people have to wonder whether you will say yes, your yes starts to matter again. You cannot be both endlessly available and deeply valued. The mind does not work that way. Abundance is ignored. Rarity is pursued. Pulling back is not cruelty. It is leverage. When you treat your time and energy as finite resources, others begin to do the same. You don't need to explain it. You simply stop giving them away freely. What costs nothing is treated as nothing. What requires effort is respected. When you stop offering immediate access, people start appreciating what they once overlooked. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My time has value. Number 6. Silence, withdrawal, and non-reaction as power. The less you speak, the more your words weigh. Every time you over-explain yourself, you weaken your position. Every justification creates a small crack. Every defense signals uncertainty. Power does not argue for itself. It decides and stands still. People who command respect do not fill the air with words. They don't explain every decision. When they speak, attention sharpens because their voice is not constant. Explanation dilutes authority. When you explain, you are quietly asking to be agreed with. You are inviting debate. You are turning a decision into a discussion. Authority does not negotiate its existence. When you say no and immediately justify it, you make that boundary adjustable. Now they can question your reasons, poke holes in your logic, and push for exceptions. The moment you defend, you signal doubt. Silence removes leverage. When you stop explaining, something uncomfortable happens. There is a pause. An awkward space. People try to fill it. They ask again. They push. And if you remain calm and unmoved, their pressure collapses. Silence forces others to confront the absence of control. When someone is used to engaging you emotionally and you withdraw without drama, the dynamic flips. No argument. No reaction. No justification. Just absence. That absence is powerful. When manipulation meets nothing, it fails. When guilt meets neutrality, it dissolves. When provocation meets stillness, it has nowhere to land. Removing your energy is dominance without noise. You don't need to win arguments. You just need to stop participating in games designed to exhaust you. Calm disengagement communicates more strength than any explanation ever could. Strong people speak rarely, not because they lack words, but because they understand restraint. Silence becomes gravity. Presence becomes weight. You owe no one comfort for your boundaries. You owe no one access to your reasoning. State your position. Then stop talking. Say this, feel the shift, and write this in comments. My silence carries authority. Number 7. Emotional autonomy is control of outcome. As long as someone can move you emotionally, they can steer your behavior. If guilt works on you, you are controllable. If their anger makes you adjust, you are controllable. If their disappointment changes your decisions, you are controllable. Emotional autonomy means ending the habit of managing other people's emotions. It means releasing the belief that you are responsible for how others feel. The moment you stop regulating their emotional state, you reclaim control of your own life. Most people don't realize this. You cannot control anyone else's emotions. You never could. You can only behave in ways you hope will influence how they feel. And when your actions are shaped by that hope, you are not acting freely. You are performing. Emotions are tools in social dynamics. Guilt is used to make you comply. Anger is used to make you retreat. Disappointment is used to make you try harder. These tools only work when you allow emotional pressure to override your judgment. Emotional autonomy breaks this pattern. It means you stop bending to discomfort just to keep someone else comfortable. You stop reshaping yourself to prevent reactions you fear. You stop sacrificing your peace to preserve theirs. There is a method often used against manipulation that works because it removes emotional reward. You become neutral, uninteresting, calm. No reactions to provoke. No defenses to attack. No emotional supply to feed on. You respond with facts, not feelings. With clarity, not intensity. With politeness, not engagement. Manipulators rely on emotional feedback. They need you upset, defensive, guilty, or apologetic. When you refuse to give that reaction, their strategy collapses. There is nothing to push against. Guilt only works when you already believe you are doing something wrong. If your boundaries are reasonable, if your behavior aligns with your values, guilt has no place to attach. Others can try to place it on you, but it won't stick. Emotional autonomy turns guilt into noise. Calm neutrality becomes armor. When you are not reactive, people cannot hook you. When you do not defend yourself, they cannot exhaust you. When you are not trying to prove anything, they lose leverage. This does not mean becoming cold or distant. It means becoming selective. You remain warm with those who respect you. You remain open where there is safety. But you close access where manipulation lives. Emotional autonomy makes you unpredictable in the best way. People no longer know which emotional button to press because the buttons are gone. When emotions no longer move you, control disappears. And when control disappears, exploitation ends. Say this and let it settle. My emotions are mine. Number 8. Aggression is not violence. Aggression and violence are not the same thing, but most people confuse them. Aggression is forward force. It is the energy that moves something through resistance. It is the certainty behind a boundary. It is the internal pressure that says, this stops here. Violence, on the other hand, is chaos. It is destruction without purpose. It is harm for the sake of harm. You do not need violence, but you absolutely need aggression. Boundaries without firmness do not exist. A boundary spoken softly, without conviction, is heard as a suggestion. When your limits lack force, they invite testing. Controlled aggression is clarity. Think about people whose no you never question. They do not raise their voice. They do not threaten. They simply speak with finality. There is no hesitation. No emotional leakage. No invitation to negotiate. That certainty is aggression in its cleanest form. Real aggression is quiet. It is the steady pressure of someone who knows exactly what they will and will not tolerate. It is direction without apology. It is forward momentum that does not ask permission. Boundaries require weight to hold. A soft no encourages pressure. A firm no ends the conversation. When your refusal is calm and unapologetic, it leaves no opening for argument. Stillness combined with certainty is intimidating in the most respectable way. Not because it is frightening, but because it is immovable. People sense that nothing they say will shift you. Pressure fails when it meets solidity. You can be polite. You can be composed. You can even be kind. But beneath that surface must be steel. Not cruelty. Not hostility. Just the understanding that if a line is crossed, something changes. Without that underlying firmness, words lose meaning. Aggression does not make you harsh. It makes you reliable. It tells people that when you speak, you mean it. That your boundaries are real. That your presence is grounded. The moment you learn to be firm without being loud, strong without being hostile, clear without being cruel, exploitation becomes impossible. Say this and stand by it. My no is final. Number 9, identity shift, from helper to architect. How you see yourself determines how others treat you. If you identify as a helper, someone whose role is to support, fix, and make life easier for others, that identity quietly shapes every interaction. Helpers are reactive. They wait for problems to appear. They prove their value by being needed. And because of that, they are consumed. Architects are different. An architect is not waiting to be useful. An architect is building something. They move with intention. Their value exists before anyone asks for anything. They are consulted, not drained. When you live as a helper, you are always on standby. Waiting for the message. Waiting to be needed. Waiting to prove your worth through service. People feel that orientation immediately. They sense that you are trying to earn your place, and they treat you accordingly. When you shift into the architect identity, the dynamic changes. You stop asking, how can I help? You start asking, what am I building? Your focus moves away from being useful to everyone and toward creating something that matters to you. Purpose replaces availability. Direction replaces reaction. This is the core shift. You stop proving your value and start assuming it. Instead of thinking you must help to be valued, you understand that you are already valuable and sometimes choose to help. One position is rooted in need. The other is rooted in abundance. Mission creates gravity. When you are moving towards something meaningful, People feel it. They sense that you are not desperate for approval. They sense momentum. And momentum is attractive. Helpers are easy to replace. Architects are not. A helper maintains what already exists. An architect creates what did not exist before. One waits for instructions. The other sets direction. This does not mean you stop being generous. It means generosity becomes selective. You help where it aligns with your mission. You give from surplus, not depletion. Builders are respected. Servants are used. When your life is organized around what you are creating rather than who you are pleasing, people stop consuming you and start respecting you. Say this clearly. I am building, not waiting. Number 10. Becoming the villain by choice. The moment you begin to protect yourself. The moment you start saying no. The moment you stop sacrificing your comfort to keep others comfortable. Some people will label you selfish. Let them. Freedom begins when you accept that you cannot control how others portray you. You cannot force them to understand your boundaries. You cannot make them see that you're not abandoning them, only that you've stopped abandoning yourself. So stop trying. Some people will rewrite their story about you. They'll say you changed. They'll say you became cold. They'll say you're not who you used to be. That story is not your responsibility. Here's why this matters. As long as you fear being called selfish, you remain controllable. That word becomes a leash. People use it to pull you back into old patterns. Don't be selfish. Think about others. And you comply, not because you agree, but because you're afraid of becoming the villain. But here's the truth most people never admit. Protecting yourself is not selfish. Setting limits is not selfish. Refusing to be drained is not selfish. And even if someone insists it is, so what? The moment you accept the label, it loses its power. Say it internally. Call me whatever you want. That's when control collapses. True power is not anger. Anger means they still affect you. It's not hatred either. Hatred means attachment. The highest form of power is calm indifference. When their opinions no longer disturb your peace. When their misunderstanding no longer pulls you back. When their judgment no longer alters your decisions. You become untouchable. The ultimate leverage is the ability to walk away, genuinely. Not dramatically. Not emotionally. Not with speeches or threats. Just a calm realization. This no longer works for me. And then you leave. No returning. No explaining. No second chances driven by guilt. That ability, the willingness to lose people, is the strongest position you can ever hold. Because it proves one thing beyond doubt. You value yourself more than their approval. Once judgment stops frightening you, manipulation dies. They can call you selfish, cold, changed, ungrateful. None of it moves you. None of it bends your boundaries. None of it brings you back. And without that fear, they have no leverage left. No guilt sticks. No pressure works. No emotional tactics land. You're free. Free to build life on your terms. Free to protect your energy. Free to walk away from what no longer respects you. Free to be misunderstood without correcting the record. Here's the irony. Once you stop caring about being the villain, you often stop being one in reality. Because you're no longer acting from resentment or people-pleasing. You're acting from clarity, from self-respect, from conscious choice. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I honor myself first. You stop over-explaining. Your choices no longer need permission or justification. When someone pushes for reasons, you repeat your boundary, or you say nothing at all. You stop apologizing for having limits, for needing space, for not being available on demand. Because none of those things require an apology. You slow down. You don't rush to reply. You don't jump every time someone needs something. You don't scramble to prove your value. You move with intention instead of reaction. You speak less, and your words gain weight. Because they're no longer wasted. When you speak, people listen. You observe more. You notice who respects your boundaries. You notice who tests them. And you become deliberate about where your energy goes. And people feel it. They stop assuming you'll always say yes. They stop treating your time like it's disposable. They stop crossing lines casually because they've learned there are consequences. People begin consulting you instead of consuming you. They approach with respect instead of entitlement. They value your input because it's no longer free or guaranteed. Not because you became cruel. Not because you became cold. But because you proved, through action, that exploiting you costs more than it's worth. You are no longer harmless. But you are controlled. You have strength, and you choose when to use it. You have boundaries, and you enforce them calmly. You have the ability to walk away, and that alone changes everything. Here's the final truth straight out of Machiavelli's world. No one can use you once you are no longer safe to exploit. You were never weak. You were never selfish. You were simply giving without limits. And the moment you stop being everyone's free resource, you become someone people respect instead of use. Value instead of drain. Think twice before crossing. Not because you're mean, but because you've made it clear that disrespect comes with a cost. If this message resonated, hit like. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because we don't talk about comfort here. We talk about power, clarity, and self-respect. You are not here to be used. You are here to be respected.